Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. Well, I got to tell you, we have talked about how stories, fishing stories, sort of not only set the stage, but I think direct our memories more than anything else. When I think back to all the fishing days that I've had, I don't remember the number of fish I catch or even how big they were or what they look like, but I remember stories that go along with that. So today I've got a story that came from a fisherman in this area. I have no idea how true the story is, but I think it'll be interesting. And I was talking to my sister yesterday, and she was talking about one of her friends from childhood that visits her often now. And she grew up on the Deer River. And she was telling my sister Brenda about the time when she was a girl, and she was a young teenage girl at the time, when she and some of her friends were swimming in the Deer River. And she had apparently this bathing suit that had this pearl clasp on it. I can't picture it because I can't picture what bathing suits must have looked like. But it had a pearl clasp. And she was swimming. And actually, she was swimming in the very pool that's become my favorite pool in the Deer River. But anyway, she said all of a sudden, something hit her from the side and knocked her backwards with her head going under the water. And what it was, she said, was a giant muskie. Now, we give muskies have legends built around them, but I've always been skeptical of stories about muskies ever attacking a person, and I don't think they ever would. I think the times that muskies have interacted with people in that way is because something about that person made them think that there was something to eat there. Not the person themselves, but they saw something flash or whatever. And I think in this case, that pearl, that muskie's eyes saw that pearl. It was probably 2 or 3 inches big, something like that, this pearl clasp. And it saw that flashing in the water, and that's what it went after. The one thing I can tell you that I've noticed about muskies is they almost seem indifferent to people being around them. They're at the top of the food chain. They don't have enemies at least that they're aware of. There's nothing bigger than them in the water that's going to attack them. And so they're not afraid of things. And so many times we've been fishing on these little streams and muskies have come right up to the boat. That's why if a muskie follows, it's going to see the boat. It's probably going to see you. And yet if you figure eight the lure, a lot of times it will hit it because it doesn't care much about you. And I've told you stories about when I've been in the water and I've had muskies be swimming right out there in front of me. I didn't notice them at first, and then my bait came by and I saw the flash of the fish or whatever, and they didn't seem to care that I was there. I didn't scare them. They didn't leave because of that. So if you think of that nature of what a muskie is like, then it makes more sense that some of these so-called attacks of muskies are at least partly true. And I remember a few years ago in Canton, there was a teenage kid that was swimming there in Canton, and a muskie, so they said it was a muskie, came up and attacked his arm, and his arm was lacerated. I mean, there was some deep cuts and bites in his arm. And it probably, the muskie only saw his arm moving separate from his body in the water, caught that movement. It seemed like something that was struggling in the water and probably hit it. I don't know. I've never had a muskie attack me, and I've been in the water an awful lot wading with these fish. But I've also had several instances where these muskies have come right up to me, and they haven't seemed to care. And so I almost said her name, but the girl that had that incident when she was young, that stuck with her whole life. She has remembered that stood out, and that's what stories are about. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.